Hey yo, another crazy video from the Angry Photographer here. Just wanted to go over, instead of talking about gear for one video, I wanted to go over, especially for newbie photographers or even some amateurs, that basically, a lot of them really don't know this, that when it comes to zooms versus primes, other than optical quality, obviously we kind of need to go over that first. When it comes to optical quality, like this huge whore, this wonderful, it is a wonderful lens, the 28-300 FX Nikkor for XFX camera. There's a whole lot of glass in there. Even though they're superior elements, all the best glass in the world ultimately is still shit, because too much glass ruins your image. You get barrel distortion, chromatic aberration, even on ED glass and nanoparticle. Of course, everybody thinks, well, you know, all those elements in there are nanoparticle coated because there's a big N on the side of the fucking lens. Well, no, that's not the case. At most, there is one element, or typically one side of one critical element that is nanoparticle coated. It's not a big deal. Too much glass is too much glass. One of the primary reasons why primes are wonderful is several reasons, but one of them is that there isn't that much glass there. You've got great optical transmission, and you've got great image reproduction hitting your sensor instead of passing through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, you know, literally up to that many elements of glass. And all the best glass in the world isn't going to fix that. Another thing you learn in photography school is that a lot of people end up with a 50mm and they go, oh, I can't do anything with it, it's a piece of fucking shit, you know, I gotta move my feet, and it's an issue, and they end up buying a nice zoom lens like this. And don't knock it if you only pack one zoom lens around. You know, like this 28-300, this huge whore is, you know, wonderful. Of course, it is $1,050, but it's a wonderful lens. It's tack sharp, basically, across the entire spectrum of its range. The problem is that it's like being able to walk and sitting in a weird wheelchair all the time. It'll turn you into a lazy douchebag. I mean, I will shit you not. If you don't believe me, shoot 1 week with your favorite zoom, and then shoot 1 week with a prime lens, and then go back and look at the pictures, and invariable, you know, unless you're, you know, total shit at photography, you will see that you're like, oh my god, all these prime lens shots look so awesome, and my zoom lens shots just look kind of shitty. You know, what's the reason for that? And, you know, the philosophy behind it is really simple. With primes, you got to get up close. You know, you got to zoom with your feet, and you got to think, and especially if it's an older manual lens, even more so, because you got to adjust your aperture, or adjust your aperture on your DSLR, but you got to, you know, focus your lens, and you're thinking about composition, and I said you're zooming with your feet, you're thinking a lot more about composition. It used to be a lot more so back in the days of film, because, you know, film was film, you know, you wasted film, you didn't want to process shit, so, you know, made sure your shots were good. You know, everybody today is just out there like, well, you know, shit, I got a 128GB card in there, I'm just going to shoot the pow, 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 fuck. You know, they shoot 10,000 shots, like, oh, Jim, look, I found one shot out of 10,000 that looks good. Oh, you fucking bitch. You know, you just turned everybody into a bunch of lazy douchebags, you know, so primes are important for many reasons. One is, obviously, better reproduction, better color saturation, better accuracy, sharper image, but it also keeps you from becoming a lazy douchebag. And I guarantee you, if you start sucking off the tits of zoom lenses for too long, you will become a lazy douchebag. Now, if you're a pro or you're an advanced amateur, you've been shooting a long time, you know how to correctly use a zoom lens. You know when to use it and where to use it, and you think about all the stuff that you used to think about when you're using prime lenses, or if you're old enough to use manual lenses. I got a lot of manual lenses, and everybody actually ought to screw around with a manual lens. It'll make you a better photographer. It's like saying, if you want to be a better runner, you need to run, you know. And if you got a zoom lens and you're trying to become a better runner, you know, sitting in your wheelchair trying to crank it around the racetrack isn't going to cut it, and that's basically the equivalent. Prime lenses force you to get up close. Get up close. It's kind of like an analogy of being at a zoo. You're at the zoo, it's like bam, 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 there's everything. Prime lens, you got to get up there, you got to zoom with your feet, you got to touch the image, so to speak. You got to get in there. Now, like I said, do the test where you take only either a manual or a prime, 1 or 2 lenses for a week, and then spend the next week just using 1 or 2 zoom lenses and see the drastic difference. Unless you're a professional and your skills are such. I've seen a lot of professionals where they've actually used to be professionals. They're kind of old and sodded now, and they've switched to prime. I mean, switched to a couple zooms. Like, well, I'm old and decrepit. I don't want to pack around all that fucking glass. I'm just going to pack around this huge whore zoom and fucking do everything. And they've gotten lazy, just kind of like an old person that used to be an athlete. Won the Olympic marathon in running. Now he's in a wheelchair. He's producing kind of shitty shots. They might be good compositionally, but they're kind of shitty. And that's the problem with zoom lenses. I mean, you've got the mechanical and optical superiority of your prime lenses over your zooms, because too much glass is always a bitch. Doesn't matter how good the glass is glass, and glass fucks your image up. The less glass, the better. The best glass in the world is no fucking good if you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Holy shit. All the best particle coatings in the world isn't going to fix that. You have barrel distortion, chromatic aberration, pin cushioning, there's all sorts of problems, even on the very best glass. A lot of people don't like primes because they're lazy douchebags, and it creates them. It makes them lazy douchebags. You need to have prime lenses, if for no other reason other than optical quality. You got to have a good set of primes. And obviously, the important thing, since most primes nowadays, especially Nikkor primes, are rather expensive, except for some of the cheaper stuff, the common stuff like 50s and 35s. You need to make the right decisions. Like, well, what do I plan on shooting, and what do I need, and let me ask a recommendation on what's the best to buy. And I'm going to give you a good analogy of what a zoom lens is. When someone gets a nice camera, they buy, well, I don't want a prime. This fucking lens will cover about 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 primes, so I'm just going to get that. If you're on a trip or something and you're limited in size, obviously, it's a good idea. You only pack 1 lens. You're limited. You only got so much space in your backpack. You can go hiking around Europe, obviously. It's a wise, intelligent choice. You don't want to be packing around 5 or 6 prime lenses. It's logical, that's sensible, but most people aren't doing that. And what happens is with when someone has a zoom lens for too long, or if they start out with zooms and they have a 50mm collecting dust over in the corner, whatever the hell it is, they turn into shotgunners. And it's the perfect analogy of what happens about why you turn into a lazy douchebag when you're using a zoom lens too much. The only people that should be using zoom lenses a lot are pros that have a tremendous amount of experience with prime lenses, and they're masters of light, and they're masters of composition, and they know how to accurately use a prime lens, so they're not fucking shooting 10,000 shots like, oh honey, I waited through 10,000 shots and I found one good one, but I had a 128 gigabyte SanDisk card. That kind of covered it all. I shot that wedding, and I got 80 pictures of that bitch, but I found one good one in there that I could use, and so, oh my god. Oh my god. Anyway, here's the perfect analogy of what happens when you use a zoom lens too much, or if you start out using a zoom lens. It's like heroin. You get addicted to it. You do not discover the importance of zooming with your feet and thinking about composition and taking the time to either focus or work on your compositional skills, which is what you do with a prime lens. So you've got optical superiority with a prime lens, but you've got the important thing that it forces you to think about your composition, zoom with your feet, and it's literally walking as far as intellectual exercise to become a better photographer, instead of getting on your fucking Segway and going around the track. You're not going to build up any muscles on a Segway. And this is what people have. They stick in birdshot in their shotgun, which is basically their zoom lens, and they go out to shoot something, and they stand really far away with like a lens like this, and they go, okay, there's that picture over there. Boom, okay, I got that picture. Let me zoom into 300, even though it's only 10 feet away. Boom, there's that shot. Okay. Now, here's a little flower down there. It's about 5 feet away, but I'm going to zoom into 200 and shoot that bit. Boom! That's slightly an extreme analogy, but it's also extremely accurate. That's what happens when you become a lazy douchebag from using a zoom lens too much. And by God, I know I've got a lot of zoom lenses, but I grew up on primes, and especially old manuals, and everybody actually ought to shoot a manual. You do a lot of shooting. You should actually set a day or even a week aside where you're just using 1 or 2 prime lenses, even an old manual prime lens, and a lot of those are built like fucking tanks. They'll last forever. So that's what you need to do. Unless you want to be a lazy douchebag in a wheelchair and never improve your compositional skills. You know, a lot of people think, well, you know, if I don't like it, I can crop that shit out. You know, I can blow it up, and that's why I got this 33 megapixel FX camera. You know, the composition, I'm just going to zoom that bitch in, and I'm going to Photoshop it and change the color. Oh, okay. So you've traded compositional and light manipulation skills for Photoshop plugins. Well, you're not a photographer, you're a fucking keyboard jockey. Oh, well, you know, everything's digital now, and, you know, everybody uses Lightroom and Photoshop. Yeah, well, that's great. I'm so glad to know that you've changed, you've traded photography for Photoshop skills. Like I said, you need to have your primes, and you need to use your primes. And once you get skilled on those, you can use a zoom lens accurately and reliably. A zoom lens is just like I gave you analogies, like having a shotgun with birdshot. You know, I'm just going to spray and pray. You know, I'm going to spray all that shit out there, and whatever looks good, I'm going to crop into it, and then I'm going to Photoshop the shit out of it, and then the picture will look good. Oh my God. Assholes! Yeah, it's a perfect way, perfect path to incredibly low quality or mediocre photography skills. So that's my philosophical tip today from the Angry Photographer. This shotgun analogy of fucking yourself over with zoom lenses.